Natural selection, also called Darwinism, is the theory Charles Darwin used to explain the origin of different kinds of life on Earth. Encarta World Dictionary defines it as the process of adapting to environment, the process, according to Darwin, by which organisms best suited to survival in a particular environment achieve greater reproductive success, thereby passing advantageous genetic characteristics on to future generations. In layperson's terms, it's survival of the fittest, and those organisms not well fitted do not survive. So how does this pertain to woodcock? Let's take a look. My dogs and I pursue this remarkable yet perplexing little game bird, the American woodcock, an average of 60 days per season. Because of my obsession with game birds and watching the dogs work, our season starts early. Late September has us making our way through the countless stands of alder thickets in Michigan's northern Lower Peninsula. Not too long after our return from northern climes, mid-October finds us in our favorite coverts in and around southern Indiana and all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Although I hunt over flushers, chessies, my dogs are more at home traversing an upland covert, regardless of how uncharacteristic it may look, than sitting in a duck boat or waterfowl blind waiting for the command to retrieve. Their exposure to the field has not only made my dogs the proven upland hunters they are today, but also opened my eyes to the unusual behavior timberdoodles now incorporate into their daily lives. My apprehension about writing this piece came with legitimate cause. I was advised that writing about bird behavior was something that should be left to the professional biologists. Being hard-headed like the typical chessie, I chose not to listen, feeling that my time in the field justified my qualifications. As stated earlier, natural selection is a learned adaptation of survival passed from generation to generation. Those of us who fervently chase pheasant and ruffed grouse recognize it in the offspring of these birds who always seem to have a few new bags of tricks up their sleeves. Woodcock are no different. For a number of seasons, I have observed woodcock doing something they rarely did in the past to escape. Run, and I'm not referring to the customary couple of yards they have scampered when pressured by hunters. I'm talking about distances that would have a ringneck doing a double take. That the woodcock are running is no wonder, with the deluge of hunters and predators nowadays and the rapid depletion of habitat across their range. One thing is for certain, though, it seems to be working to their advantage. The first time I became aware of this woodcock trickery was during a hunt at one of my favorite coverts here in Kentucky. Working the area no differently than usual, my attention was curiously drawn to a sound resonating off the forest floor. This sound, which mimicked that of a chipmunk scurrying amongst the leaves, was quickly heading in my direction as Cinnamon, my female chessie, was nose down and coming hard. Not believing my eyes, I realized the sound I heard was not that of a rambunctious chipmunk, but a running timberdoodle trying to elude the unrelenting chessie. With Cinnamon quickly closing the gap, the bird decided enough was enough. A push from his spindly legs and he took to the air. The outcome could only be as expected. Awestruck by what had just taken place, I missed with both barrels. Leaving the woods that morning, all I could do was wonder if other hunters had experienced or were even aware of this out-of-the-ordinary woodcock behavior. I knew one thing. I was definitely going to find out. Ever since that eye-opening incident, I have picked the brains of woodcock hunters. Whether talking with hunters in the field or corresponding in forums via the internet, the one thing I have concluded is that a minimal number of woodcock hunters out there know of or believe this escape tactic. While some hunters have been quick to attribute their lackluster success to the decline in woodcock numbers, I'm not doubting their decline, others have tried blaming it on the timeliness of the woodcock's migration. Personally, I have to disagree with both excuses and believe woodcock have incorporated this learned running defense mechanism into their daily lives for a reason: survival. And with my 2 Chesapeake Bay retrievers, I have turned more than a few cynics into believers. Before I proceed any further, let's clear the air on a few points of the running timberdoodles debate. First, the literature of the 60s, 70s, and even 80s does suggest woodcock are tight-sitters. With that said, other hunters believe that woodcock have been running all along. I agree that woodcock have probably been running since their earliest existence on this planet, fleeing open areas to cover whenever danger has approached. but not at the frequency or distances witnessed as of late. Second, not every woodcock my dogs and I encounter are hotfoots. Some have only scampered a few feet before flushing, while others have held their ground and not run at all. Finally, because I do use chessies for all of my upland hunting endeavors, some people charge that my dogs are the reason I come across the number of running woodcock that I do. Hogwash. My dogs are extremely deliberate in their approach to woodcock, or any game bird not running, and they're more inclined to point scent rather than bust it. To support my case, here is what a couple of pointing dog heavy hitters with a total of over 70 years of woodcock hunting experience between them had to say on the subject of running woodcock. Whenever I think of game birds and dogs, the first person that comes to mind is Tom Hugler. To me, Mr. Hugler is to bird hunting what Bill Gates is to the computer world. I had to find out Mr. Hugler's thoughts on this topic. Yes, I agree that woodcock appear to be running more than they did 10, 20, or 30 years ago. I say appear because I have no scientific evidence to back this up. But my observations say it is indeed true. Not all woodcock, of course, but some woodcock. For over 30 years, Michel Galinas has hunted woodcock in Quebec and has even ventured to France several times for the European species, Scolopax rusticola. In addition, Michel has been banding woodcock with the use of his pointing dogs, Braque Français, since the spring of 1983. He also keeps tabs on woodcock and woodcock anomalies, and even has a web page dedicated solely to woodcock and the breed of dog he hunts with. So where does Mr. Galinas stand on this matter? I have hunted woodcock since 1971. In the beginning of 1990, I noticed this tendency of Scolopax minor, American woodcock, for running. From one year to the next, they run more and more. Why? I presume hunting pressure. His behavior, sick for survival, becomes imperative and genetic. I have also been hunting woodcock in France. Earlier, she was easy as our woodcock several years ago. With hunting pressure in this country, she becomes more and more wild. Almost every pointing dog owner hunts woodcock in this country. My personal observations have allowed me to notice this behavior about American woodcock, albeit unscientific. Again, a hard-nosed woodcock hunter who agrees the woodcock are running more. Even though the above annotations are supportive, I knew there would still be skeptics out there who would want more. With that in mind, I called upon the expertise of a few specialists, namely Dan DeSecca, Senior Wildlife Biologist with Ruffed Grouse Society, Dan Macaulay, Research Wildlife Biologist at USGS Patuxent Wildlife Research Center, and Frank Gesioro, President of the newly formed Woodcock Limited. When questioned about running woodcock, Mr. DeSecca stated the following: I concur with the assessment that woodcock do indeed run to avoid predators in some instances, and my use of the term predators includes bird dogs. However, I'm not sure that there has been any increase in this trait through time, and I suspect that there is substantial individual variation. Some birds are simply more prone to run than others. Agreeing with Mr. DeSecca, Dan Macaulay added, it's probably a learned trait. If you run and survive, you continue to do so and perhaps pass along the genes. Following those lines, Mr. Gesioro concluded this: woodcock have always run in front of pointing dogs. I don't think any single factor causes them to run. Once a woodcock has run and escaped, it is more likely to do the same thing next time. Woodcock, like grouse and even pheasants, are more likely to run in areas where they are hunted more heavily than in areas where there is little pressure. Somewhat contradicting viewpoints amongst biologists and bird hunters. Perhaps. Although lacking scientific evidence, all observations do show woodcock are running. To many of us, they are not only running more often, but farther, and this is becoming more prevalent season after season. Why? Clearly it is survival, to avoid being a meal ticket for the next predator. Those hunters who don't know of this and adapt accordingly will experience at best lackluster success. The hunters who do, continued success. Republished with permission from Woodcock Adaptation, Natural Selection by Gary Adair, 2004. The Upland Almanac, Autumn 2004. 2004 by Gary Adair.